Hi, so this is part of my extra credit brain project, so here it is. Part of the brain is the brainstem. The brainstem controls automatic behaviors necessary for survival and is the pathway for tracks between higher and lower brain centers. So that's the brainstem here. So this lower part here is right here, medulla oblongata. It is the most inferior part of the brainstem, regulating respiration, cardiac function, vasodilation, and reflexes. So on the medulla oblongata, we have these two longitudinal ridges. These are called the pyramids, right here and here. They are large descending motor tracts. Down near the bottom of the pyramids here, we see this area called decussation. This is the crossover point of descending tracts. Each cerebral hemisphere controls the opposite side of the body, and that is where this comes into importance. We can't really see very well in this model, but over here on both sides of the pyramids, which would be about here and here, would be the olives. While they sound like food, they are actually responsible for the relay of sensory information to the cerebellum. This area here is the pons. The pons is located between the midbrain and the medulla oblongata. It connects the higher brain centers and the spinal cord. Here we can also see the middle cerebral peduncles as well, over here. These link the cerebellum with the pons and relay impulses between the motor cortex and the cerebellum. Down here at the back of the head, we have the cerebellum, right here. Dorsal to the pons and medulla, it protrudes under the occipital lobes of the cerebrum. It controls precise timing and appropriate patterns of skeletal muscle contraction. This small dot located centrally is the thalamus. It is at the superior end of the brainstem beneath the cerebral hemisphere and has 24 nuclei. So it's connected to the brainstem here. It's just the top portion. Below the thalamus, we have the hypothalamus around here. It is responsible for many of the functions of homeostasis and also modulates the endocrine system. Located just below that is the pituitary gland, right here, this little dot, which controls many of the processes in the body and also helps maintaining homeostasis. Up top, we have the cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex is the two hemispheres, and each hemisphere acts contralaterally, so it controls opposite sides of the body. The hemispheres are not equal in function. There is some lateralization. We also have the cerebrum up top. This forms the superior part of the brain and contains 83% of its mass. This C-shaped curve we have in the middle right here, that is the corpus callosum. It is a thick bundle of nerves that ensures both sides of the brain can communicate and send signals to each other. These sections here are the different brain lobes. The blue lobe in the front, right here, is the frontal lobe. It is responsible for voluntary movement, expressive language, and higher executive function. This lobe on top here, the yellow lobe, is the parietal lobe, responsible for sensory reception and integration. This green lobe here on the bottom is the temporal lobe, responsible for sound and smell. And finally, this red lobe here in the back is the occipital lobe, responsible for sight. So here we have some of the cortexes. In the very front, right about somewhere around here, we will have the premotor cortex. Anterior to the precentral gyrus of the frontal lobe, it controls learned repetitious or patterned motor skills. Just behind that, somewhere about here on this blue, we'd have the primary motor cortex, controlling the conscious control of precise, skilled, voluntary movements. Somewhere behind here, there isn't really a shading for it, but right about here, we have the primary somatosensory cortex, which receives info from skin and skeletal muscles, exhibits spatial discrimination, so it is able to ID body region being stimulated, and the body is represented spatially so that the amount of cortex it takes up equals the amount of sensitivity. That's all for today. Thank you.